I do think that dealers just increasingly need to focus on the areas of the dealership that they can control, and specifically those areas like F&I and fixed operations that drive the most profit.
Heather, it's not quite the Wynn Studios, but that doesn't mean it's any less impactful.
No.
Our conversation.
And it's really because of guests.
It is our guest.
Like Steve Greenfield.
Steve Greenfield, if you don't know, it would be hard to know anyone in the automotive industry that is not aware of Steve Greenfield. But in case you're not, he is the author of 2 books, The Future of Mobility, The Future of Automotive Retail. He is the founder of Automotive Ventures. Anything related to technology, innovation, consumer behavior, OEMs, investments, he is tracking it all. So we had the opportunity to talk to him today, and he gave us some really sound advice when we think about all of the factors that are impacting and the dynamic business that we're in with automotive. Would you agree?
Oh, most definitely. Affordability. Really looking at the economic outlook going out 2, 3, 5 years, what opportunities there are for dealers in the different departments. It was a very exciting discussion.
And he's got a thing for cats.
He has a little bit of a thing for cats, and we learn a little bit more about that.
That's right. We're going to find out about that and a lot more. We hope you enjoy it. Let's take a walk around with Steve Greenfield. Welcome to the Walk Around podcast, and Steve Greenfield is with us. Steve, there's so many terms we could say about your knowledge: prognosticator, soothsayer. What do you consider yourself primarily in the auto business?
Well, I'm an investor. My day job is investing. I mean, I do. Thanks for having me on today. Do get to have a lot of conversations like this one about the future and what things are going to hold. But I think part of our investment thesis is be able to look around corners, anticipate what things are going to happen and what things aren't going to happen, and then invest appropriately. But no, I'm very appreciative of being here today, and looking forward to with you looking into the future and having a little bit of peek into the future.
Yeah, that's primarily what we're interested in, and Heather and I were really excited when you agreed to join us. So we thought we would jump right in on an issue that all of us are talking about in the industry, and that is affordability.
Sure. Yeah.
Of course, we are seeing that tighten. We are seeing monthly payments near the 1,000 monthly amount, which is just mind-boggling.
I mean, and what consumers financing their vehicles for 84 months is becoming the norm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, fewer and fewer new cars are priced under $30,000. So what's your outlook on affordability? Where do you see this heading in the next year plus? And what's your advice to dealers about it?
Yeah, and great question. And the one thing I would add to that data point is that the default rate on deep subprime continues to ratchet up every month, right? So while prime customers, the default rate doesn't seem troublesome, we are seeing this increase in default rate for the deep subprime customers, and some are anticipating the repo rate as a result is going to go up, and we're going to see more of these repos coming back to the auctions. But this is a bit of a self-inflicted wound. I think that during COVID, when we had supply chain glitches, the automakers sort of said, well, if we're going to have to be limited with the cars we're going to build the ones that have better equipment. Judiciously use those microchips where we can get more profit margin. And we've seen this pretty dramatic step up in average price. Cox Automotive reports that just last month, the average vehicle transaction price for new vehicles was over $50,000 for the first time. Mm-hmm. And we've left this big gap of this, to your point, like a sub 30,000 car, which a few years ago was kind of a sweet spot. And now even on the used car side, it's hard to find cars of high quality and low mileage with $30,000 or less sticker price. So I think it is challenging. The other thing that isn't talked about a lot is that we're continue to see cars coming back, 3-4 years after COVID that were sold far above MSRP. where consumers are shocked at just how dramatically underwater they are. I have all this negative equity that when they buy a new car, they've got to roll into the new car. So it is a challenging environment right now, especially for deep subprime. I think we do have this kind of what they're saying like a K-shaped economy right now. Those with prime credit, no worries, things are good, spending's great, credit's good, credit's flowing, et cetera. But I think for those folks that are more subprime, it is a challenging environment right now with prices being higher, default rates being up, et cetera. So I think for those dealers out there, it's really, a challenge. You've got to sort of stratify and segment your customers differently. I think those prime customers probably are selling to them in the same way. With the subprime customers, it's just a dramatic different experience for them. And you're going to, I think, increasingly have a hard time getting some of these people financed.
Yeah. Steve, one of the things you mentioned as we're talking about affordability and the prime consumers are continuing to be able to take on these payments is you mentioned the chip shortage. And lately we've been hearing in the news coming up that we may see some similar supply chain opportunities that we saw in 2022 coming out of COVID. Can you talk a little bit about what you know and what you've heard about the pending challenges we may see in the microchips?
Yeah, it just shows you the fragility and the interconnectedness of the supply chain when you have a chip maker over in Holland they're potentially going through bankruptcy, and their absence could really, really disrupt new car vehicle supply here in the U.S. Right? It's kind of like chaos theory when you've got a butterfly's wing and halfway across the world there's a hurricane as a result of that or something. But I think the beauty of the American economy is we've dialed in the supply chain so tightly that everything, Amazon or whatever, is just in time delivery, and we've got local stock of these things, et cetera. But as we saw during COVID with microchips, it doesn't take much of a disruption in the supply chain. So I think that this is just one example. I don't suspect this is going to amount to too much in the short term, but just another example that we've dialed in this supply chain so tightly that any disruption whatsoever is a challenge. And the implications are that the automakers, for a multitude of reasons, are under pressure. They're under pressure for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is just the supply chain. And they're going to share the pain with tier one suppliers, those suppliers that supply them the products they assemble together into vehicles. And the automakers operate at a pretty thin margin, but the tier one suppliers really operate at a thin margin. So any disruptions to these tier one suppliers, as we've heard about in Europe, could threaten bankruptcy. And again, just shows you the fragility of the supply chain overall, and hard to anticipate how this will play out. But I suspect that there will continue to be disruptions because we've dialed this thing in so tightly.
How do you feel, or what would be your advice, Steve, to dealers regarding affordability?
Yeah, so I like to tell dealers, worry about the things that you can control. The things that are beyond your control, you can't really help, right? So your automakers, for example, are going to build certain cars,
Steve, I need to take that advice in my own life.
We all should, my friend. We all should. Yeah.
But continue.
We often wake up at 3 a.m. about the things we can't control anyway. But no, I think that the what dealers can't control, they can't control what cars their manufacturers are building and whether or not consumers are going to like those cars. They can't control much about what front end gross profit they're going to be able to generate off the sale of new cars. What they can control which used cars they stock on their lot. They can control how much they focus on F&I in terms of attach rate and back end profitability on the car deal. They can control how well they're absorbing market share for fixed operations, parts and service in their local market. They can control how well they're nurturing their customer database to make sure that all three of us buy our next car from the dealer and they drive loyalty and make sure we come back and service our car at the dealership. So I do think that dealers just increasingly need to focus on the areas of the dealership that they can control, and specifically those areas like F&I and fixed operations that drive the most profit, and then spend an undue amount of attention to those things that will drive profit and create the economic health, the buffer for their business, especially in these times of uncertainty. Don't worry too much about the things you just can't control.
It's getting me thinking about the term I've heard many times in the financial world: control the controllables. And
Right.
your business will thrive. So one of the other pieces that you've mentioned early in our conversations, and it's a slight pivot in what we're talking about, is disruption. And as we know, we are seeing disruption in the DMS space and the retail technology space, the Techions of the world, the Pinewood, et cetera. And so, we'd really like to know what your thoughts are on the DMS space, Steve, and the new entrants that I mentioned, Techion and Pinewood, and what should dealers be looking for before making a change, whether it's a DMS technology or any type of investment that could impact the customer experience. What should dealers be thinking about?
Well, yeah, taking a step back, I would say, competition is one of the attributes that makes America great, right? Competition makes the incumbents smarter, forces them to be faster, more agile, et cetera. And then clearly competition is good for the end customer, in this case, the dealer, who has more choice. So I do think while it would be nice to have, a rigid fixed market share amongst a couple of players, competition makes the whole pool much smarter, more aggressive, and everyone benefits. I think the dealers have more choice now, right? So they do have the upstarts, the Techions and the Pinewoods and others who are smaller but growing quite fast, are on probably a more agile software base. Don't have the legacy technology debt that some of the big players have. Therefore, they can innovate faster, et cetera. But the flip side is, at a dealership, there's this notion of change management, especially with a DMS. I may have employees that have used that same DMS for 20 or 30 years, and trying to get them to change is very, very painful at times, right? So that creates more stickiness with the legacy players overall, even if there are features that some of these new players have that these legacy players don't have. So I think any dealer that is wanting to evaluate a technology shift, from what I understand from dealers, a lot of it is the change management. It might be, hey, we're really enamored with this new interface. Our employees look at it and say, wow, this would unlock our ability to do a lot of things that we're not doing now for the benefit of the consumer. But then you run headlong into, but now we've got 300 employees and they all need to be trained and they're all used to doing things. And we're all this way, right? We're all sort of cognitively lazy. We get into our ruts. We like doing things the way that we do them. Change often is perceived to be a threat. So there is a bit of, they say it's technology, people, and process. And I think in many cases, it's not just a new technology. You really need to think about how many of our processes we need to change, and as the impact on our employees, because at the end of the day, our employees are the ones that are really doing the work to generate revenue and profitability and provide that customer experience. And you want to be able to bring the employees along with you on the journey as you make these kind of dramatic technology decisions.
Curious, Steve, on the topic of technology decisions. You mentioned earlier you're an investor. That's your business. That's where you're spending a lot of your time. So when you think about automotive technology, where is that trend going? What are you seeing in the market? What are dealers, or what should dealers be curious about based on what you're seeing and where technology is evolving?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you can't look at any news outlet today without seeing something about AI. Across all industries, something like 63% of all venture capital money is being invested into AI companies now. So it's definitely hot. Some say it's too hot and too frothy when you see these $500 billion valuations for startups like OpenAI that didn't exist 2 or 3 years ago. But that's another topic for another day. But I do think that now taking that and applying it to dealers overall, dealers I think are already starting to get a little numb to the number of vendors that are pitching AI-enabled, AI-powered solutions overall, and I think that that's only going to get worse. We're going to be walking into NADA here in a month or two in Las Vegas, and every booth is going to have some mention of AI, some new feature that's powered by AI, et cetera. But I think on the flip side of it, dealers should be very excited. They're very excited, and they're by my calculations, a dealer's cost structure is about 60% human capital. So about 60% of their cost structure every month is human capital. And even, light AI that helps all of your employees become more productive should naturally move all your metrics in the right direction. Like, for example, the average salesperson sells 10 cars per month. I've got to imagine that with AI, we're going to unlock productivity gains, for example, in selling cars, where that salesperson that used to sell 10 cars a month may start selling 12 or may start selling 15.
I'm curious, how do you see AI impacting that ability to make a car sales process more efficient today?
And just to tag on that, all three of us know we've been at an average of 8 to 10 cars since probably the early 1980s. And I keep hearing this about AI impacting car sales. Mm-hmm. And here we are, 2025. We're still selling an average of 8 to 10 cars. So if I'm a dealer and I'm listening, or a salesperson or sales manager listening to this, how do you identify out of these tools and technologies that we see, what's going to move that needle 2 cars per month on average for salespeople?
Yeah, I agree. I'm a bit of a doubter too, so I hear you echo your concern.
Oh, Steve, I thought you had like a magic answer.
I know. I was hoping that dealers. I was like, okay, make sure you're tuning in right now.
Yeah, this is going to be our headline,
right?
I do give these things a lot of thought. So listen, this is how I would characterize it. If you and I went out and we found the 10 most productive salespeople in the country, I got to assume that they sell consistently 30, 40, maybe 50 cars a month or something. And look at what they do. I've got to imagine it's something like this. I've never sold a car, but I'm assuming it's something like this. They really focus on being very attentive to their customers. So when they look at a customer, they're like, I'm not going to sell this person 1 car, but over their lifetime, I'm going to sell them 5 cars. I'm going to sell their spouse's cars, their kids' cars, their neighbors' cars, et cetera. And they build up that network. Well, how do they do that? They probably are very attentive to the customer. So, every year I get a reminder like, hey, congratulations, Steve, on your birthday. I hope you still are enjoying that Toyota. On kids' birthdays, they probably get a handwritten card that goes out to those folks, et cetera. And they're probably very attentive to their customers. So, their customers probably say, I'm never going to buy from anyone else. I love dealing with Steve. He's such a great salesperson. He knows me. He knows my kids' names. He knows their birthdays. He knows what their favorite sports are, and he sends me things, et cetera. All of that is scalable, and AI should be able to help with that. Like, who will be better to track birthdays and, anniversaries and kids' names, et cetera, than AI? Imagine this. Imagine, I walk into a dealership and up on the salesperson's screen goes, hey, we've just used facial recognition to recognize Steve just walked in. As a reminder, his spouse's name is X, his kids' names are Y. And by the way, he's got 2 golden retrievers right now, and he loves those things to death. And their names are Mary and Jane or something. And all of that should be able to be done real time with AI. So you could have this very powerful, successful salesperson that has a photographic memory, or you could have AI that augments, the average salesperson and brings them up. It's kind of like the rising tide, rising all boats. Yeah. Like the average salesperson now should be as effective as the most effective salesperson on earth, just because AI is sitting persistently on every single device they're using and just reminding them, like nurturing them, giving them an easy button they can press to make them much more effective, even for brand new employees. So I do think that AI has this promise. We'll see if it is able to fulfill that promise, but we may see this huge breakthrough with productivity, no matter which role it is at the dealership. We could describe back office automations and accounting automations and fixed operations automations, and how do we drive more throughput per technician when they're under a car using augmented glasses to help diagnose problems. I mean, I do think we're on the cusp of maybe some big breakthroughs that are really going to drive productivity. And by the way, when a dealer's employees are more productive, they're able to do more work, and that means more revenue per head, and that means more profit overall at the end of the year. So I think dealers should be embracing this new frontier, and we'll see how this all plays out.
Steve, I knew you were making up that bio about yourself because you don't have golden retrievers. I heard you're a cat person at heart.
I am. I'm embarrassed to tell you how many cats in this house with me.
Best bet.
Share this?
Best bet, is it 6, Is it 8?
Is it over or under 6?
Over, under?
I'm going to take the... It's over 6? How many are we talking, Steve?
It is over 6. I can't tell you, but
you don't want to reveal it. Okay. All right. Well,
it's dramatically over 6. So.
Dramatically over 6.
Okay.
Are we talking 12? Are we in double digits?
Or cats can kind of, they live on their own. They have their own life. Do you really know how many you have at a certain time?
I always
are they in and out of the house?
Yes, it's a part-time job, but no, I've taken since COVID to rescuing cats, and at some point I'll scale it into an actual nonprofit. But for the time being, yes, I'm getting a lot of experience rescuing cats from the street.
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Well, on the topic a little bit of AI in the future, we wanted to ask your future outlook. You have published a book on the future of automotive and looking out into 2050, which is always fun and interesting to hear expert takes on what does the automotive industry look like. From where you are today, based on when you made those predictions about 2050, are any of them feeling more likely, less likely? Have you gone back and thought about some of those things that you're predicting for 2050, and has there been a change or a affirmation?
A little bit of all of the above. In that book, I'm almost embarrassed. That was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I was pretty declarative that a level 5 autonomy was never going to happen, and it's amazing now. I don't know if both of you have been in a Waymo yet, but
I haven't. But we had some colleagues that just came back from the Salesforce conference, and they are incredibly amazed at the progression with Waymo, because in the early stages of Waymo, it wasn't as smooth. There was friction in the driving experience, but now their comparison is it's made incredible strides.
Yeah, I mean, if you get a chance, whether you're in Arizona, San Francisco, it's popping up in a number of cities. It's here in Atlanta, Austin, Texas. That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, you'll start to see a wave of new cities being announced, I think, every quarter, which is great. This isn't going to replace for mainstream America. This isn't going to replace, having a car in the driveway. But in dense urban areas, you could foresee, this being a substitute as the cost per mile comes down dramatically. This being a substitute for maybe owning a second car, right? Or definitely for business travel. You look at, Uber drivers today, like, whoa, these Uber drivers may not need to exist in 5 or 10 years, and they may need to get repurposed and reskilled as some other labor force. But so the autonomous thing's interesting. I'm not threatened that it's going to replace car ownership and like everyone's going to go to autonomous ride hailing and no one's going to own a car. But I do think if you're in a dense urban area and the cost per mile does come down dramatically, you might say, look, I don't need to own the extra car, or, I'm going to substitute rather than driving downtown and worrying about finding a parking spot and paying $20 an hour. I'm just going to hop in one of these autonomous vehicles powered by Waymo or whomever. And it may start to substitute a significant proportion of the miles driven per year. And I think that's good. I think this is a good thing. We should welcome it. The opportunity here is that someone's going to need to service these cars. So every day they're going to need to get charged. They're going to need to get cleaned because people are going to leave French fries in the back seat.
Among other things.
Oreo cookies.
And I think dealers are kind of ideally positioned in their local markets to potentially have a new business line where, now I'm servicing, I'm doing fluid changes, I'm servicing, changing tires, et cetera. But also I'm detrashing these cars, I'm cleaning the exterior of the cars and charging them up overnight. That could be a nice profitable new revenue stream. For example, one of the benefits of as we move more towards autonomy. So autonomy is one that I was a doubter, but now I'm a believer, having sat in some of these Waymos. It's really unbelievable technology. And it's a little space age to get your head around it overall, but it's amazing. I think that, dealers have a very resilient business model. I articulated that in the book. And I think that's shown through COVID now. It's shown through after COVID that they're going to have to move the shells around on the playing board a little bit, right? Like we said, don't worry too much about whether you're under pressure in certain departments because they have plenty of levers to pull. very, very profitable levers to pull across different departments in the dealership. So I suspect that the franchise dealer model will continue to be profitable and it'll be durable. I mean, we saw so many automakers during COVID that wanted to potentially sell directly, looking at more of a Tesla-like model, and almost all of them have backed off now. Yes, we still hear Scout, which is owned by Volkswagen, launching their new vehicle, and their intent is to sell directly. We have this Afeela car, which is the joint venture between Honda and Sony. They intend to sell directly as well. But I think even those brands will eventually realize that going through the franchise dealer model is just the most effective way to sell and service cars in their local communities. So I think the dealers can rest assured that their business model is defensible, very profitable, not as profitable maybe as it was in the peak of COVID in 2022, but continues to be a very profitable, attractive business model that's defensible and durable for the long term. So I don't think that there's any scenario that when we look out 10 or 20 years that dealers don't exist.
And as you outlined in your book, Future of Automotive Retail, heavier reliance on the fixed operations area of your dealership. And I think that's why it's so critically important to take care of that customer experience, because they are going to rely more and more on that dealer to continue to service and take care of their vehicle. It was a great book, and I enjoyed reading it. You want to move on to Best Bet?
Let's do it. So,
All right.
Steve, we're going to close out our segment with you with a little game that we like to play called Bet It or Forget It.
And typically, Steve, and hopefully at NADA in 2026, we can catch you.
Yes.
We're in our Sirius XM booth at the Wynn Hotel. We will be back, doing live interviews, and we'll be able to indulge Mark's gambling habit. But for now,
you had to mention it.
I had to mention it. Sorry.
Okay.
So, but for now, we'll do Bet It or Forget It.
Here we go. Bet It or Forget It. So you mentioned profitability, which was actually one of the things that we had on our list here. So here it is. By 2030, average dealership net profit margins will drop below pre-pandemic levels. Bet it or forget it?
Forget it.
Forget it. Tell us why.
Yes.
I mean, Glenn Mercer, who, if you haven't talked to, is just a great industry expert, has this chart going back 50 years to showing the average dealer profit margin and how stable it's been. And I do think there are some unique opportunities to unlock additional profitability, especially in fixed operations. For example, as the cars get more sensors on them and are able to diagnose when a critical component needs to be serviced or is going to fail, and on the dash, the car recommends going to a service bay to get that work done, they're not going to recommend independent repair shops. They're going to recommend the franchise dealer, probably where you bought it from. And I think as a result, you're going to drive tremendous loyalty back to dealerships. So they're going to actually have increased loyalty of their local vehicles in operation in the future, driving more revenue and profitability through fixed ops as an example. So I think that the automakers will figure out ways to ensure the dealer channel continues to make really good, healthy profits. Dealers will be very intuitive and creative in terms of working with their vendors. And I actually think that the dealer profit margins will be sustainably healthy into the future.
Well, with those sustainably healthy profit margins, bet it or forget it, dealership valuations will continue to rise over the next 12 to 18 months, even with margin pressure. Bet it or forget it.
I'm gonna bet. I'm gonna forget that one. I think that I don't think there's anything. There's no cliff we're gonna drive off of, but I don't see a lot of indications that multiples are going to increase.
So you think we're going to be in a period of stability over the next 1 to 2 years when we think about valuations?
Exactly right. I think it's going to be primarily driven on, the attractiveness of the vehicles that their OEMs are producing. For example, Nissan's gotten beat up recently because the products they're producing, just like there isn't a lot of consumer demand. If they turn around and start creating hot product, you're going to see a bump up in valuations for that brand. So I think some of the individual brands will move around, but overall, I wouldn't suspect we're going to see any spikes or any dramatic declines.
So Steve, on this next one, you touched on a little bit in your thoughts on 2050, but Direct-to-consumer brand launches will fail to meaningfully displace the franchise dealer model. Bet it or forget it.
I'm all in on that one. I mean, that's exactly, I couldn't have articulated that better. Listen, this scout thing isn't going to work. This Afila thing isn't going to work. So I know that the dealers are pushing back pretty hard against those initiatives from their automakers. But look, I mean, other than Tesla, who's got significant volume? Lucid hardly sells any cars. Rivian's been challenged, et cetera. It's awfully hard to build a new consumer brand and build consumer awareness for a brand new vehicle. They're much better off using the dealer network. Dealers can sell cars. If they can do anything, they can sell cars. So I think that, let them try, but I think that these consumer direct channels are almost inevitably going to fail.
Yeah.
Steve, I'm curious your thoughts on BYD. If that makes it to the American market and you're a dealer, are you lining up for that franchise or are you not?
100%. I would want to be the first BYD dealer in my local market. If you haven't been in these cars, they're amazing. The price point is quite reasonable. The quality, the fit and finish, the quality is amazing. You talk to drivers, like as you travel around the world, you talk to people who have these cars. They're like, these are great. Great cars, great quality. The value for the price that you're paying is astronomical. And if BYD, if President Trump, for example, negotiates something with China where some of these brands come in, I do think dealers should be very open-minded about being first in line, because it's a bad day if your competitor across the street gets the BYD franchise and you don't.
I'm thinking about when dealers were approached with Hyundai and Kia, the ones that got in early. Look at them today.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right,
And unlike those brands, I mean, the first iteration of Hyundais and Kias in America were horrible.
Right.
The quality was horrible. They were not ready for the American market. Whereas the BYDs are like really, really good quality cars. So I agree with you. I think that you won't have that 10 years while they figure out the quality issues. You will have a hot product, priced right out of the gate.
Steve, one last bet it or forget it. Dealers in the U.S. will be selling BYD within 5 years. Bet it or forget it?
Bet it.
Bet
it.
Okay.
All right, you heard it here, folks.
Heard it here. Steve, we can't thank you enough. Where can people find you? Heather, we mentioned the book, The Future of Automotive Retail. I'm assuming you can get that on Amazon or anywhere you buy books.
And your latest book, Future of Mobility, which came out this year as well.
AutomotiveVentures.com. Is that right? Yep. LinkedIn.
Yep.
You are an amazing industry insider, and we can't thank you enough for sharing your thoughts with us today.
This was a real pleasure, and I appreciate both of you for everything you do for the industry and for having me on today. So anytime you'd like me to come back, just give me a ring.
We sure will.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you joining us today on The Walk Around, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow us. We look forward to seeing you next time on The Walk Around.